Danny Gilfillan from Boxing News, delighted to be joined by Eddie Hearn. Eddie, happy Halloween. In spirit of the season, we'll start with something a bit different. What's the scariest knockout you've ever seen live?
Jim McDonnell against Kenny Vice, Royal Albert Hall, 1994. Were you born in 1994?
97. 97.
No, yeah. So I'm showing my age there. Yeah, that's the scariest knockout I've ever seen. So left hook trading up. Jim McDonnell was coming back from the Azuma Nelson defeat. You know, he'd been in a lot of tough fights, and that was like a comeback fight for him. And it was like he was unconscious, carried out the ring on I think back then even on a table or something, whatever it was, and even I remember being in the change room. I think it was about 13. Just he was still out, and it was very, very worrying time. So yeah, that was probably the scariest one I've seen.
The Hurt Business. And Eddie, you're joining us, of course, from Orlando, where it's some welcome to the heavyweight division for Jordan Thompson, like Linear Pero. For some hardcore fans, might not even be aware of Linear, but this is someone with extensive amateur pedigree, someone who went on to a Showtime show as the way fighter and battered Victor Voist, who was being built at the time. How steep a test is this for Jordan in his first fight in a long time as well?
Yeah. To be honest, Dan, it's a bit of a strange fight. I mean, you know, we signed Lenny Apero, and you know, him and his brother are obviously it's a big statement, but they're kind of seen as like the Cuban Klitschko brothers. You know, two brilliant amateurs who many believe could be future world heavyweight champions. Lenier has established himself as number 3 in the world with a WBA. He's never really, outside of that win, he's never beaten too many top guys because he's never really fought them. I mean, he's still a baby in his own professional career. Jordan Thompson, you know, we knew his time was up at cruiserweight. He was going to come back in sort of a run out at heavyweight, and we talked to him about options, and he looked at the Pero fight. He goes, I think given the prize in terms of the ranking position in the heavyweight division, I think I can beat him. So I'm like, okay, well, look, if you want to go straight in, we need an opponent for Pero. We love the fight. And he said, yes, please, let me have it. So, you know, I see him this week. And the mad thing about Jordan was Jordan's like 6'6", and making cruiserweight was just brutal for him. He's now like 240 or 250 pounds. He's an absolute monster. And he's got fantastic power. He's got great speed. But he's going to have to, and I think moving up in weight and not boiling himself down will strengthen his resilience against punchers. But he's going to have to bring that resilience to the division, because that's an absolute must when you move up and fight at this level. You've got to be able to take hammer. Yes, you've got to be able to punch. You've got to be a good fighter. But Pero's very good. And if Jordan can stand up to the hammer, he's going to be a real threat in this fight. But it is a big ask, but it's a big roll of the dice.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as you say, it's a left field fight, but one that I'm sure will prove to be very entertaining. And I want to get your thoughts on the weekend's boxing just gone past, and specifically from a Joseph Parker standpoint. I've just actually spoke to Paul Smith, and he was pretty vocal in that from a managerial and promotional side of things, it maybe wasn't the best idea given the position Joseph was in to fight Fabio Wardley. Is that something you agree with?
I mean, listen, after hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? I mean, you know, going into that fight, most people believed it was a comfortable night at the office for Joseph Parker, me included. Right? I knew Fabio would do his, you know, would always come with heart and balls, but I expected Joseph Parker to win. Now, contractually, Joseph Parker was on a lot of money because of his wins, and the money that he got paid to fight Fabio Wardley was a great deal for him. And if you've got to fight someone, you can't just wait around for Usyk into, you know, March of next year. So listen, it's easy after to say, oh, I'm not sure that was the best move. For the amount of money that he got, and the, you know, the percentage chance that most people, and obviously him and his team, were giving him, no, you got, listen, and by the way, if you're going to beat Alexander Usyk, you need to be beating Fabio Wardley. So, you know, sometimes I look at it like that. But no, I think he needed to fight. He was on massive money. That was the fight that was presented to him for that kind of money. And, you know, he lost. We're always sometimes, we're too hell bent on finding the reason or finding it. Like, it's sport. If you ain't good enough on the night, you get beat by the better man, and that's what happened.
Another narrative that came from the weekend and the prior week is we could be on for the trilogy between Whyte-Chisora and Dillian White 3. How many times did you personally try to make that trilogy? And do you think now it is like we are going to see it, given the stage they're at in their career?
I was quite shocked to hear about the fight because I just thought that was a dead duck. You know, I thought that was like that ship sailed 5 years ago, 4 years ago. I mean, after Dillian knocked him out the second time, I quite liked the third fight because we had two amazing fights. I mean, how long ago was that? 6 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. But Dillian wanted to move on and try and, get himself in a position to challenge for the world title. So he wasn't interested in the fight. Then Dillian's been really inactive and Derek's been going the other way. He's been going like that. So Derek wasn't interested in the Dillian White fight. Now they can't find an opponent for Derek. Obviously, Dillian's coming off a first round defeat, probably saying, well, I'll have one more go. Sometimes the timing just kind of makes sense, but we don't really know what Dillian White's got left. I mean, we only saw him against Tete and Moses, and it wasn't overly pretty, but he's a very tough man and a proud man. And, I'm sure those two will always make good fights. So I don't know when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen, but, I'm sure it will always be a decent little tear-up.
If it does get finalised, you'd imagine it will land on pay-per-view. Now, it was announced today that Naoya Inoue versus Alan Picasso will be on pay-per-view. Fabio Wardley, Joseph Parker, of course, pay-per-view, November 22nd, pay-per-view. It's a lot for fans in around the festive period. From your perspective, Eddie, has there been a change in the market? Is this a temporary thing? Do you expect maybe with the ring pass and the introduction of that, we'll see less pay-per-views? What's your take on it?
Yeah, as I understand it, the Zone are working on something pretty big in that respect. I won't go too much into the details, but it's something that I think fight fans are going to be very happy with because there is no question there are too many pay-per-views. And the biggest problem is that a lot of the pay-per-views that are pay-per-views probably shouldn't be pay-per-view. And, I might get told off for saying that, but the reality is that's the truth and that's my opinion. I understand why they're pay-per-view because that goes back, Danny, to the amount of money that Joseph Parker's got in his contract, to the amount of money that Fabio Wardley fights. The broadcaster's just not going to pay the rights fee required to pay those purses because it doesn't give them value. So the promoter may say, well, we'll go on pay-per-view then. The problem is you're not hitting the numbers either. So it's like a vicious circle of actually, and I think that's why His Excellency said, came out and said, the ring cards moving forward or whatever we're going to do are not going to be pay-per-view. And I think he probably looks at the pay-per-view numbers and goes, you're limiting the audience, right? So really what you want to grow the sport and to grow those fights, the bigger fights for the future and those big pay-per-view fights is make the fights as accessible as possible. Parker Wardley's a really good example of a fight that obviously, because it was on pay-per-view, would have been more of a limited audience. But that was a brilliant fight. Like, you really want as many people as possible to see that fight and get that kind of value. So I think the Zone are very reactive, very smart about the product and the subscription. They're always thinking, they're always evolving. And I think they're going to come up with something that fight fans will be very pleased with.
Well, a fight that I don't think anyone would dispute as pay-per-view worthy is only a couple of weeks away. Chris Eubank Jr., Conor, Benn. There were some comments from both Chris and Ben Shalom a couple of weeks ago about how the terms on their end hadn't been finalised. Now, they didn't go into specifics. You've said on several occasions that it's contractually stipulated, the weight, the rehydration clause and so on. Is there any holdout from the Eubank side around it?
No, I mean, look, firstly, this fight was done, the contracts were done by Ring and Seller. So we have contracts with Ring and Seller. So I don't have a contract with Chris Eubank Jr. Conor has his contract with Ring and Seller, which is signed and, was all previously agreed, which was the weight, the penalties, everything. So their business and the way they do business is nothing to do with me. All I can tell you is we know what we agreed and we know what we signed for. So if they've got stuff, one thing I will say is the weight's the weight and that ain't changing. And that's been confirmed to us. So whatever they agree with Ring and Seller is on them. We know the weight we're fighting at, we know the date, we know the venue, and we know where we got to be. And we will be professional and we'll do everything accordingly. So Conor's looking phenomenal. It's completely different in this fight, and I'm very confident he gets the job done.
Just a couple other bits of business, Eddie, and I'll let you go. Background Murtazaliev, Josh Kelly will not go to purse bids. Instead, it's on a matchroom show in the UK, 2026. Talk to me a bit about how that came about, because it was a fight that it looked to becoming a real pain to get made. A fight for anyone against Murtazaliev was proven difficult. How did it come about that you're promoting the fight?
So Adam Booth approached us about the fight, and I spoke to Kathy Duva and I spoke to Louis de Cubas, who works with Murtazaliev with PBC and Igis Klimas and the whole team, and we agreed a deal to do that fight. And I'm very excited about the fight. I mean, look, we made, you know, maybe an announcement about stuff with Josh Kelly for us in the future, but I was just interested and happy to do that fight as part of our schedule. I think Murtazaliev is one of the best fighters in the world. I think he's extremely dangerous. He's very entertaining. And anytime there's a chance for a Brit to win a world title against an established world champion and a big name, I like it. And if we can do that in the UK, even better. So that was the thought behind it. Obviously, it's a division we're incredibly invested in with Jaron Ennis as well. And I like the fight. I like to see a Brit challenge for the world title. You know, we haven't got many world champions at the moment from this country. It's a tough ask for Josh, but him and Adam Booth really believe they can win the fight.
What sort of time scale are we looking at before we get a date and a venue?
Again, the deal was agreed, and you know, I do great business with Louis de Cubas, and we're working on a date at the moment.
Andy Cruz against Muratalla.
Yeah.
Boxing Scene have reported, I think 45 minutes ago, that that's set to land January 24th in Las Vegas. Is that accurate? Can we expect an official announcement?
The venue is definitely not confirmed yet, but the date is probably correct. That's been reported. Again, a fight that's gone down really well. And again, you know, we're coming out the gates very hot in 2026 with some really, really good fights and big fights. And I just loved the fight. I was pleased to win the purse bid. Obviously, it's a huge fight for Andy Cruz with just a handful of professional fights. But yeah, January 24th looks to be the date, and we'll confirm the venue in due course.
How happy are you with how you've been able to maneuver Andy into this position? Because there was never
really well, but he's taken the steps. Yeah, I mean, he's only had a handful of fights, so this is a massive step up. I've got to be honest, Muratalla is a very good fighter. This is a very, very tough fight. Robert Garcia, one of the best trainers in the world. Muratalla, a very good fighter, but we believe Andy's special, and hopefully becomes world lightweight champion in January.
Eddie, thanks very much for your time. I know you're very busy over there, so appreciate you hopping on with us, and I'll let you get on. Enjoy the rest of the fight week.
Cheers, Danny.